How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Welcome to another episode of Football 24/7 with John McMullen. I'm Tone DeShields II, your host, and we have a lot to talk about today. We have some developments, not just on the offensive side of the ball, but also on the defensive side of the ball. I was doing some reading, John, and it was a little, it got a little exciting today, man. Got a little chippy, got really physical.
Yeah, well, I mean, no pads on, remember, so you can only get so physical. There are certain guys, A.J. Brown's one of them who's a very physical guy and they can sort of body themselves and do certain things. But I'll leave the physical talk for when the pads come on because that's when the really, really physical guys tend to show up. And
Right.
usually that starts with the offensive line for the Eagles. So, the defense sort of won the day again. So the defense has been ahead of the offense, which is typically the way it is in the NFL in most cities
Okay.
early in the summer. With the Eagles, I wouldn't get too alarmed because when those pads do come on, that's when the Jordan Mailatas and the Lane Johnsons and the Jason Kelce's can start to impose their will a little bit. It becomes a little bit more difficult for the defense. So, um, it's a positive from the defensive side though, because that's the side I was talking about this today. The Eagles don't have many changes on the offensive side. They added AJ Brown. Pretty much everybody else has been here. Now Isaac Sayamalo's returning from an injury, but everybody's been here. Whereas the defense is the part that has all the moving parts, all the changes, and so the fact that they played pretty well early, I think that's a good sign for the defense.
Okay, so what were some of the key observations for you today? If you really put it into perspective, based off everything that I've read, the defense, made some plays. The offense had some moments where they shined, but overall, defense ruled the day. What are some things that you noticed specifically? Were some players that stood out to you that made some big plays?
James Bradberry was the one who stood out to me today. He was tremendous. He was tremendous in one-on-one drills, receivers against defensive backs, and he was dealing with AJ Brown, and he was locked down in coverage. In team drills, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts tried to go deep to Devontae, and James Bradberry was right there. He had a great day. He got my practice game ball. The JAKIB Sports practice training camp game ball went to James Bradberry today. So that's 3 for 3 defenders. Marcus Epps practice 1, Davion Taylor practice 2, and James Bradberry today. I'd be pretty excited if I were an Eagles fan thinking about Darius Slay and James Bradberry because and Avonte Maddox because Avonte made a heck of a play
Okay.
on Friday. Great interception. That is a heck of a trio of cornerbacks, and the Eagles haven't had that kind of talent at cornerback for a very, very long time.
Yeah, the guys you think about when you go back into the Eagles' history, you think about Lito Shepherd, you think about guys like Sheldon Brown, uh, you know, Trey, uh, Vincent. You can really just go deep into the Philadelphia Eagles Rolodex, and we had good cornerback play, and then we went through a span of having guys like Ronald Darby, who was rather inconsistent. Sidney Jones couldn't really get over the hump. Jalen Mills was someone who was, you know, a fan favorite. He was well liked by the staff, but the fans really didn't like his style. Very aggressive, someone who got beat a
Yeah,
lot
rare.
on
It's
double moves.
rare. You bring up Jalen Mills. Jalen was a competent guy. Still
Sometimes
is.
too confident, right?
Well, not from my perspective. I mean, from the fans' perspective, obviously, but I like a guy like that. That's why the coaching staff liked him. Um, Cornerbacks, they need to have a short memory. They need to have a very short memory. And if you're not competent, you're not going to be a good cornerback. Slay is the most competent person in the world. but he also backs it up with top level play. So, yeah, I give me a confident cornerback all day long. I don't want the shrinking violet at cornerback. That is not the position for a guy who doesn't have confidence.
So, speaking of confidence, who do you believe has the most confidence out there right now? Right there in training camp, guys are making plays, and guys have a lot riding on this. There are some guys who need to make this roster. They need that paycheck. There's some guys, and their position is pretty much secured. So, who has shown you the most confidence through training camp? Who's playing as if they're, I guess you'll say, they're playing free.
A lot of guys on defense. that offense, you don't worry about the offensive line. You don't worry about A.J. Brown. You don't worry about Devontae Smith. He's so talented. We're through 3 practices, Tone. I can't, other than the first practice, which was a ton of red zone work. There hasn't been a lot of splash plays from the first team offense. Today,
are you concerned?
No. For what I said, I mean, the offensive line sort of isn't part of this until the pads come on. I'm not, obviously they're out there, they're working. There's some physicality. But I mean, that's a position that is about contact and is about imposing your will. And they can do that when those pads come on. So I'm not concerned about that. If you're looking at 7-on-7 drills, it's been a little bit disappointing.
But isn't offense supposed to thrive in 7-on-7 drills?
Yeah. Well, that's why it's disappointing. Yeah, it is supposed to thrive.
So what's been the disconnect so far? I know the Eagles had a pretty successful day one on offense, and that led people to believe that the offense may be ahead of the defense, but the defense, picked up their slack these past few days, and it begs the question: Go ahead.
I don't know if it was that good on day one. They were just doing a lot of red zone work. So when all you're doing is red zone work, there's going to be some touchdowns. I mean, you're in the red zone. There's going to be some touchdowns. And people sort of equate those touchdowns with big plays. Well, if you're going the length of the field, a 7-yard pass into the end zone is just, you start at the 25, you're at the 32. It's not necessarily a big play if you get where I'm going. So they were in scoring position the entire practice on day one, and they scored some touchdowns, and people got excited by it. Last 2 days, they haven't done red zone work. Today was a big third down day.
Third and long, third and short.
Third and everything. 3rd and 3, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 11. They basically closed with a competitive period on third downs, and they started each group. The first team got a 3rd and 3, a 3rd and 5, a 3rd and 7. Then I think it was 3rd and 11, but something of that nature. First team failed miserably. Second team had a couple conversions, but wasn't great either. And the third team failed. Quarterback play has been bad. So, and by quarterback play, I not only mean Jalen Hurts, I mean Gardner Minshew, I mean Reed Sinnett, I mean Carson Strong got an opportunity in developmental period. He was terrible today. Quarterback play has been bad. When quarterback play is bad, it's tough to succeed. So that's kind of where it's been to this point. And, hopefully it improves.
I mean, it has no choice but to improve. There's a lot riding on this season, right? These guys, Jalen Hurts, Gardner Minshew, I hear Andre Chachere, made their days a living hell these past couple of days.
Yeah, well, Andre got an interception again today. it's the bigger themes to me. I think I said it probably a couple days ago, but Jalen was able to roll right and make a big play. He was able to um, do a read option and get out and make a big play in the running game. These are things we know he can do. We know we've already seen it. What we want to see improvement on, what did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do in the playoffs? They funneled him left because he's not comfortable moving out of the pocket to his left. Today, that saturate pass, he was rolling out to his left. He was waiting. He was waiting. He was waiting.
Who was he targeting?
I believe it was Dallas Goedert. And when I say I believe it was Dallas Goedert, wasn't all that clear. He threw across his body in the middle of the field. No. You're taught from day one. What are you taught from day one as a quarterback? Don't throw across your body to the middle of the field. Now, people see Patrick Mahomes do it, and they see Aaron Rodgers do it, and occasionally it's successful. But that's sort of, I've always compared it to Steph Curry taking a 35-footer.
I was thinking about that. That's the first
I say it all the time
in my mind.
If you're a youth basketball coach, I always if you're a youth basketball coach, you hate Steph Curry. You hate Steph Curry because every kid watches Steph Curry. So I want to be Steph Curry. Well, you can't be Steph Curry. You're not going to take 35 footers. That's a disastrous shot for everybody but one or two people in the world. And then you say, Steph Curry, go take it. Everybody else, don't dare do that. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes. All right, he might be able to make a throw like that, but you can't make a throw like that, so don't attempt to make a throw like that. Jalen threw across his body. Should have threw it away. Should have threw it out of bounds. Should have just lived to play another down. Now, the good part, it's training camp. It doesn't matter. You go to the next rep. You try some things, whatever, like a spring training pitcher. But I brought it up Marcus Epps, the Marcus Epps interception in practice one. That was a late throw. And these are the types of things you want to see improvement on.
Didn't that ball go to Dallas Goedert as well?
Yeah. So did the Avonte Maddox interception.
So that's three interceptions going. So that's three interceptions that went Goddard. Well, the ball was intended for Goddard, and that's three interceptions. Am I correct?
Yes. But
is there something to be said about that?
Well, there's nothing to be said from Dallas's standpoint.
Of
because
course.
Dallas was open on the Epps interception. The ball came out late. He enabled the safety to undercut it because he threw the football late. With Avonte, he baited Jalen. Knew what was coming. We got to talk. Dallas Goedert said it. We got to talk to Avonte. He said it today. He saw what was coming, and he baited the quarterback. And today, it was just throwing the football over the middle of the field, going to his left, a poor decision. What you can say is when Jalen forces the football, he usually forces it to Dallas Goedert because he's more comfortable throwing to Dallas Goedert than anybody else. That might change. He's very close to A.J. Brown off the field. But last year, by the end of last year, he was most comfortable throwing the football to Dallas Goedert. So when he does force the ball, he usually forces it to Dallas Goedert.
Understood. Now, these mistakes he's having, are they mainly in the shorter routes, the intermediate, the deep balls? Where do you believe most of his mistakes have occurred? Were they outside the numbers in the middle? Were they inside the numbers in the middle of the field? Have you been able to track exactly where these mistakes have been happening?
It's usually intermediate, outside the numbers. The interceptions in the end zone, and The Maddox one was on the sidelines on a corner route. Today it was, as I said, threw across his body. So that's just a bad decision. I mean, you could sort of he probably knew that as soon as he let go of the ball. The other two were, um, one should have been a touchdown. The other, he forced it into Dallas Goedert, but he's typically not comfortable throwing the football in the middle of the field. We've seen his passing charts. I always joke that they should be sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts because there's a big hole in the middle, and there shouldn't be when you have Dallas Goedert and AJ Brown, but he's not comfortable throwing the football in the middle of the field. The outside stuff, that's about being on time. If you're going to throw the football on an out route, say 10, 15 yards, that ball's got to be out. That's got to be out in the NFL on time.
Is he still not trusting what he sees?
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. He's got one of the longest release times from a poor perspective. Takes more time than just about any quarterback in the NFL to get the ball out. And, that's about not trusting what you see. There's no other way to frame that.
So do we, see, this is where things get a little fishy for me, because you expect the guy, the expectation is that he's working to clean up a lot of these bad habits. And I guess that speaks to the expectations of the fan. A lot of fans have high expectations for Jalen Hurts to take this quote unquote leap. And, I'll admit, I believe he will improve. My biggest concern is how much. And just based off what I've been hearing thus far, it doesn't really seem like too much.
Well, 3 practices are 3 practices. I'm not concerned about the floor. He's a good player. He's a good player. Now, he's a unique player. He's good because of other things that we don't typically talk about with quarterbacks. His running ability, his +1 impact on the running game as a whole, his ability to shake off. Like that Giants game last year was the worst game he played last season when the Eagles lost to the Giants. That was the worst game he played. They still should have won the game. They had no right to win the game because of how poorly the quarterback played. However, he was still fighting and clawing in the fourth quarter, and he put the Eagles in a position to win the game. And we know the Jalen Reagor 2 drops. So that's the game I'm talking about. Now, most quarterbacks, if they play like that for 3.5 quarters, they're done mentally. They checked out. That game's over. You lose. Jalen Hurts is always coming. He's always, in other words, you can play 55 minutes of good football, and he's still coming with 5 minutes left. And that's what he almost did to the Giants if Jalen Reagor could have caught the football. Played a terrible game, but made enough plays to put you in a position to win. Same thing kind of happened in Carolina. He played a terrible game there and kept fighting and fighting and fighting and was able to make a play here, a play there, and put the Eagles in a position to win. All that stuff is tremendously positive. The hope was that the other stuff, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers gave everybody a blueprint for how to play Jalen Hurts. Everybody in this league has that blueprint now. Force him left. Force him left. Do not let him out of the pocket to his right. Force him left. Now, you might not have the talent to to utilize that type of game plan, you might not have Vita Vea, who, was blowing up offensive lines. You might not have two linebackers that can run from sideline to sideline
Right.
and contain Jalen Hurts. So a lot of teams can't implement it, but they're going to try. They're going to try, and Jalen's going to have to adjust to it. And look, it's 3 days. It's not even August. But all we can do is report on what we see. And the first 3 days, from an offensive perspective, have not been good for the Philadelphia Eagles. Jason Kelsey admitted it. Nick Sirianni admitted it today. And he'll admit it the next time we talk to him. They haven't been good from an offensive perspective. It's not the end of the world. As I said, they don't even have the pads on yet. When the pads come on, the offensive line comes into it.
Yeah, and to your point, right? You're one of the people who says Jalen Hurts is not a practice player.
No, by no stretch. Not a practice player at all. You blow plays dead in practice because you want to protect the quarterback. And his biggest strength is his ability to extend plays. You can't do that in practice. So something gets blown dead in practice, it might be a big play in a real game because they're not going to blow it dead, and he might extend that play and make a big play.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, he has to continue to put the best foot forward, and I don't expect any less from a guy like Jalen Hurts. Like you said, he's going to continue to come at you with everything he has, even if it's practice, training camp, OTAs, a real game, preseason. Even though he doesn't really play preseason games, I don't know where he got that privilege, but Jalen
Everybody's got that privilege.
Well, according to the new CBA, starters are exempt from playing preseason games on any stretch, right? So,
well, the Eagles CBA, not
the Eagles have their own collective bargaining agreement at this point, right? So, let's push the conversation a little forward. Let's talk about some injuries. Milton Williams, Grant Calcaterra, those are some of the first injuries we've heard of thus far in training camp for the Philadelphia Eagles. Can you shed some light on both of those guys, starting with Milton Williams?
Yeah, Milton was out with an elbow injury, so we don't know the severity of it. But the Eagles actually, you don't have to report injuries this time of year. The Eagles do a good job letting us know why players are not practicing, but they're not generally going to get into the severity of potential injuries. So we'll have to keep an eye out and see how Milton is progressing. Grant Calcaterra has actually been one of the bright spots of the offense in that he's at least made a couple catches. And, it's really important for the Eagles to find a backup tight end to Dallas Goedert. And, Grant has a chance to play, which you don't often say about 6-round picks, but he actually made a catch today from Gardner Minshew. And as he was hauling it in, he grabbed the back of his leg. So could have been a hamstring, could have been an ankle, but he limped off very, very slowly, went into the trainer's tent and wasn't able to return to practice. It was late in practice anyway, but so my hunch is he's going to be out for, and we'll see what kind of injury, but he's going to be out for at least best case scenario, probably a week or two.
He walked off on his own strength, correct?
Yeah, he very slowly, but limped to the trainer's tent. But and the Eagles are going to be cautious. We know that. So anybody who has any kind of malady is going to be held out of practice. The problem there is he's a rookie, and with rookies, you want to get them as many reps as possible. So it is going to affect Grant Calcaterra. Right now, they're installing the offense, so I think it was 7 or 8 practices Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen used to install the offense last year. So we're just in the midst of that. Same thing defensively. Jonathan Gadnich just installing things. And, a rookie missing time is always a little bit more of a concern.
Yeah, that affects his standing. Uh, that leaves an opening for Jack Stoll. Tyree Jackson, I know he's on the pup list, but if Grant Calcaterra can't, get right soon enough, Jack Stoll can probably catch him. Just based off what we're talking about, it seems like Grant Calcaterra is, in the lead right now for that backup tight end spot until Tyree Jackson comes back healthy, or even if Tyree Jackson can probably, beat him out as well.
Yeah, I don't know if Jack Stoll and him are fighting for the same spot because they're different types of players. Jack is a blocker, not much of a receiver. Grant's a receiver who's not much of a blocker. So, the good thing for the Eagles is Dallas can do both. So from that perspective, you can say, all right, what's our better option? Is it better to go with Jack Stoll and have Dallas Goedert as the flex tight end, or is it better to have Grant as the flex tight end and have Dallas Goedert as the inline tight end when you're in 12 personnel? And the answer to that might be none of our tight ends are good enough, so let's just play more 11 personnel, 3 receivers. So I think people kind of forget that. And the Eagles, if Quez Watkins is what fans think he is, just play 3 receivers and play Goddard. And the offensive line can block anybody. So I don't think that part of it's as big a concern. But the real issue is, and you never want to talk about injuries, but if Dallas Goedert gets injured, even if it's for a week or two, then you have some really big problems at tight end. There's very low depth there, very low depth.
It limits you, right? Dallas Goedert is our most complete tight end. He is probably the only complete tight end. Jack Stoll, the blocker, more so the guy you use in those heavy packages. Then Grant Calcaterra, a guy you can a pass catcher, a more vertical tight end. That won't bode well for the Eagles if Dallas Goedert goes down. And Dallas Goedert has had injury history. Now, thus far, he's shown that he can stay healthy. I think the only injury he dealt with the last season was COVID, right?
Yeah, but there's not a lot of sort of old school two-way tight ends. So
not many these days.
No, it's not. George Kittle can do it. Dallas can do it. Mark Andrews can do it. Most Travis Kelce, Kyle Pitts, those guys are flex tight ends. They're not going to block anybody. Or, if they do, they're just getting in somebody's way.
A Darren Waller type as well, flex more so.
Yeah, Darren Waller was a receiver before he moved to tight end. So he's not a blocker. So there's not a lot of inline tight ends who are great receivers as well. So that part is not rare. You either have there's certain guys who block and there's certain guys who catch, and you kind of mix and match, but it is a concern. Doesn't matter who you want to talk about. You can talk about the quarterback. You can talk about all pros like Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, on and on and on. No matter what player you want to talk about, to me, the biggest drop-off if the Eagles were to lose that player is Dallas Goedert to his backup. It's the biggest drop-off on the entire team.
Well, let me ask you this. If A.J. Brown goes down, that's a pretty big drop-off, right? Now we go back to what we had last season. I know you brought up the wide receiver position. I'm curious to know how these other guys are performing. Is Quez Watkins making some splash plays? Jalen Rigger, Greg Ward, Brenton Covey. Those guys are going to be competing for the 3, 4, 5 spots. And Zach Pascal, right? I believe today was his first day practicing after bouncing back from COVID. So
no, Zach's still out. He didn't have COVID. He had food poisoning.
Food poisoning. My apologies. Fletcher had COVID and Kelce.
Yeah, Fletcher and Kelce were back in team drills.
First time taking 11-11, right?
Yeah. So Zach is still out recovering from the food poisoning. Jalen's made some plays.
Rager, right?
Yeah, against the second team cornerbacks. When they put him against Bradberry, it did not work out well. Um,
So
so
we're seeing his limitations. Then we're seeing
yeah,
that okay, definitely can't get it done against Bradberry, but everyone below Bradberry, he's been sort of
yeah,
feasting on. So we're seeing his
exactly,
cap.
exactly.
How often do you see such a hard stop for a player?
Um, Not that often. I think because you know I predicted before camp Jalen's going to have a great camp because Jalen Rager I'm talking about. Um, because he's going to be playing against second and third team cornerbacks, and he's a first round talent. He's just got more talent than they have. But he doesn't have the competence to play with the big boys. And that's been part of his issue. And when he goes out there against Bradberry or Rager, or excuse me, Slay, um, you know, it, you got to be good. You got to be good to deal with those guys. Um, and if you have a bad rep, you can't take it with you. Um, and Jalen's one of those guys. We went through it with Nelson Aguilar as well, who probably takes some of those bad reps and carries them on his back instead of just letting the backpack go and going on to. We always talk about with corners, right? Same thing with receivers. Corners get beat all the time. It's the nature of the position, nature of the game. I was just talking about the competence. You have to have confidence. The one thing I loved about Jalen Mills, fans hated when he would do this. I thought it was great. I said he doesn't know he shouldn't be doing that because he's got so much confidence in himself, and that's what you need at the cornerback position. It's not as pronounced at wide receiver, but it's the same type of sentiment. All right, if if Bradbury locks you down, like he locked down AJ Brown twice today in one-on-ones, it's not going to affect AJ Brown. All right, he said, all right, a good player got me on a one-on-one in training camp on July 30th. AJ Brown's going to say, who gives a you know what? It's not going to affect him at all. Devontae Smith's that way as well. Jalen Rager's not that way. He's got to be that way, but he's not that way.
But you would think surrounding him, and we're going to begin to close the show out soon. But don't you think being around guys like a Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, guys who are essentially some of the best at their craft, you would think that would help a guy like Jalen Rager grow his confidence, or depending on the type of person he is, his character, maybe being around guys that confident or that talented can diminish his confidence. It works both ways.
Yeah, it does. He's got the talent to play in this league. I know people don't believe that, but he does. And, you can go on YouTube and watch his one-handed catch from last year's training camp. I'm sure everybody has seen it. He's got the talent to play in this league, but a lot of people have the talent to play in this league. And competence is a bigger thing than people realize.
Absolutely. And this is going to be our final topic. I really want to ask you about Nick Sirianni's response to the Miles Sanders situation with him not being the number one guy in yesterday's training camp. And I believe he took first team reps today. But I'm curious to know, what was your assessment of Nick Sirianni's response to the questions when it came to Miles Sanders standing in the running back room?
It was kind of funny because the first play of team drills today was probably the best offensive play, and they got the football to Miles, and he broke one. Which training camp there's no tackling, but he broke it and went 70 yards for what would have been a touchdown. Who knows how it would have broken out if there was an opportunity to be more physical, but was on the side field. I was there with a bunch of other reporters, and Nick screamed, Miles is with the ones. Miles is a starter. So he was having a little bit of fun with it. Look, And my buddy Zach Berman was the one, I think, who wrote the story. We all knew he took some second team reps. I think I wrote it on JAKIB Sports on Friday. I don't recall him taking second team reps last year. So I don't blame Zach Berman for bringing it up. I don't recall him taking a second team rep. Now Nick was saying he did. Nick would know better than me. Nick charts these things. He said they just rotate, but he made it very clear today, both in his press conference and when he was having fun with us on the sidelines. Miles Sanders is the starting running back. And as I just put on Twitter, look, I don't care if you're a Kenny Gainwell fan. I mean, he is by far the best running back on the Eagles. That doesn't mean he's Jonathan Taylor. Doesn't mean he's Nick Chubb. It doesn't mean he's Derrick Henry. Doesn't mean he's Dalvin Cook. But on this team, he's way better than Kenny Gainwell. He's way better than Boston Scott. And the Eagles know that. The Eagles know that. Now, is Kenny a better receiver? Yes. That's why Kenny Gainwell will play on third downs and will play in the hurry up. But as far as a runner, Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott are not even in Miles Sanders' league. And Nick Sirianni knows that.
Yeah, a guy like Miles Sanders, you see the talent. I feel that Miles Sanders has top 10 talent, but he can't stay healthy. He has limitations in the passing game, and that's where the NFL is. Running backs have to be as dangerous in the passing game as they are in the running game. And Miles Sanders has moments where he dances a bit too much, is too much east and west, and not enough north and south. So
yeah, he does. He's got all players have faults. He's got faults.
Of course,
he dances too much. There's some ball security issues. He ran out of bounds in the 4-minute offense. I could go on and on and on. And if you get me Nick Chubb tomorrow, I'll say, yeah, all right, let's go with Nick Chubb. If you get me Dalvin Cook, yeah, okay, I'll play Dalvin Cook. If it's Miles Sanders versus Kenny Gainwell, I'm going Miles Sanders. If it's Miles Sanders versus Boston Scott, stop it. Stop the nonsense. I'm going Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I can't blame you. But yeah, John, we're going to close this show out. A good day at training camp today for the defense. Offense clearly has a lot of improvements to make. But again, you guys, it's really just training camp. They don't even have the pads on. And they're getting a lot of situational work done, a lot of installs. So nothing for Eagles fans to really fret about. You guys don't have to always go at John McMullen. We see you guys. You guys are always trying to put John McMullen on the chopping block because he's just reporting what he sees. And I don't think he's the only one that sees, the clear flaws on the team. But again, it's training camp. No one's putting, you have some people who like to jump out the window, right? But yeah, John's style is more so straight down the middle, half glass empty kind of guy. And I think you guys can appreciate that because he's going to call it fairly. He's going to call how he sees it. And I have nothing but respect for, that style of reporting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. Some people like smoke blown up there. You know what? But it's funny because, they'll yell at you for criticizing player they want to do well for a player they've kind of given up on. And a lot of people have given up on Miles. They'll criticize you for pointing out he's not as bad as they might think he is.
Right.
And Miles is one of the most interesting people to me because I'm the one who said after his rookie season, I never got so much hate, Tone, when people would say, oh, he's better than Dalvin Cook. He's better than Christian McCaffrey. And I would laugh at those, and I go, settle down. He's got a long way to go. He's a good player.
Let him get past the rookie contract at least.
Yeah, he's a good player. And now
good's not good enough, John. Don't you get it? Calling a player good, calling a player top 10 is not good enough. They have to be number 1.
And now, see, I get no apologies for saying, Miles has never lived up to that because he's not. Nick Chubb. He's not Dalvin Cook. He's not Jonathan Taylor. But what he is a good football player. Not a great football player, but a good football player. And now people say, oh, he's terrible. We got to get rid of him. Well, if you get rid of Miles Sanders, you're not going to be as good because he's the best running back you have.
Are you better with them or are you better without them? People have to ask themselves that question. Now, I think we all know the straightforward answer to that. But John, once again, another great show. Great coverage of day 3 of Eagles training camp, and we have a lot more to discuss. Make sure you guys are here on Monday as well. We're going to be here 7 p.m. Eastern time to give you guys more coverage. Day 4 of open practice, of open training camp, and also make sure you guys are liking the content. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel as well, JAKIB Sports, and make sure you guys check out John McMullen's writing on JAKIBsports.com. That's JAKIB Sports.com. On top of that, let's give a shout out to one of our biggest sponsors, Oceans Casino Resort. Those guys are located in Atlantic City, and by far the best casino and resort in the Atlantic City area. Probably one of the best casino resorts on the East Coast, and I put that on everything. I had a great experience there, great food, great energy, and just all around great ambiance and great vibes. Also, make sure you guys, while you're there, for all your sports betting needs, go check out the gallery at Ocean Casino Resort. You can place your bets there. You can get some good drinks there, some good food. You can watch all the games. Any kind of vibe you need, Ocean Casino will provide it. So, also, shout out to the JAKIB Sports postgame show that will be located at the gallery every postgame, every single time we play, every time the Philadelphia Eagles play. You're going to see Seth Joyner, you're going to see Devin Caney, you're going to see Mike Missinelli, Derek Gunn at the gallery at Oceans Casino Resort. So make sure you guys go check that out. On top of that, go check out JAKIB Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got charged to the game. That is my show that I do, and I give you guys a lot of content on there. And again, don't try to read too much into what you're hearing or seeing these days. It's be perceptive, but don't be gullible. Things are starting to roll themselves out. Things are starting to become clearer, and things are going to become more clear as the season approaches. And we're going to find out what this team is, who they are, how good they are come week 1, leading into about going into that bye week. And I think by the bye week, we're going to know a lot about this team. So, any final thoughts, John, before we get out of here?
Off day for the Eagles tomorrow, and then, as you mentioned, we'll pick up Monday for day 4 of open practice, and we're getting closer to pads coming on. And when the pads come on, I think the offense gets better, because I think that means the offensive line has a chance to really get in the mix. And the strongest part of the Philadelphia Eagles is the offensive line, and they will show up when the pads come on.
Absolutely. And you guys, you were tuned into your edition, a Saturday edition of Football 24/7 with John McMullen. I'm Tone DeShields II, the producer for JAKIB Sports and the host of Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge to the game. One love, stay humble, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay hungry. And make sure you guys stay locked on JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. One love, and take care, you guys.